Welcome to the 6th episode of the Skills Factory, talks and ideas about skills from Europe and beyond. This is the podcast done by the European Training Foundation, European Union agency working on the topic of human capital development. Have you ever wondered what would happen if you could study in a different way? What would you expect from education after COVID-19 pandemic? And for the career you have chosen, what do you think employers and private businesses want from the recent graduates? Today, we're going to provide you with 5 concrete tips on how to be a perfect job candidate on the competitive labor market of today. And we will hear 2 different perspectives, the one of employers and private businesses, and the one of young generation. Let's start. I'm Marie Lvova, and today we're giving the voice to the young generation and the representative of the chambers of commerce from the Western Balkans. So let's start. Today we're speaking with young European ambassadors, Bojana Lalatovic from Montenegro. Welcome, Bojana.
Nice to be with you here.
Alexander Karatosho from North Macedonia. Welcome, Alexander.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
And Alexander Lubomirovic from Serbia. Hi, Alexander.
Hi, thank you very much for the invitation. It's an honor to be a member of this podcast.
And from the other side, we will have the representative from Western Balkan 6th Chamber Investment Forum, Tatiana Shteriova-Dushkovska. Hello, Tatiana. Welcome.
Hi, Maria. Thank you for the invitation.
So to start our conversation, Bojana, Alex Karatosho, that we will call Alex for this podcast, and Alexander, could you please shortly present yourself? Bojana.
Yes, my name is Bojana Lalatovic. I come from Montenegro. I'm a third-year PhD student at the Faculty of Law, University of Belgrade, and I'm also working in the Regional Youth Cooperation Office in Montenegro. That's shortly about me.
Thanks a lot, Bojana. Alex.
My name is Alexander Karatosho, as you already mentioned. I come from Macedonia. I'm a student at the Faculty of Economics, and I'm one of the young European ambassadors as my colleagues. But I'm also the founder and president of a civic society organization called Youth Empowerment Association, and also the director of the Karatosho Foundation.
Excellent. Thanks a lot. Alexander.
So my name is Alexander Ljubomirovic. I'm from Belgrade, Serbia. I'm also a young European ambassador of the Western Balkan region and Serbia. I'm also president of the Organization of Serbian Students Abroad. And currently I'm doing my MA studies at the Freie University in Berlin. The subject is East European Studies.
Thanks a lot. So Tatiana, could you please shortly describe what Western Balkan 6th Chamber Investment Forum does?
Yes, the Chamber Investment Forum is an association of the 6 national chambers of commerce. It was established in 2017 and has its seat in Trieste, but is represented through the national chambers of commerce in the 6 Western Balkans countries. That is Albania, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Kosovo, Montenegro, Serbia, and North Macedonia. So the primary goal of the activities is increasing the competitiveness of the region, and we are working hardly on removing obstacles for increased regional economic cooperation. Amongst other things that are in the primary focus of the association is the working on the possibilities for improving the business and the investment climate in the region and supporting the sustainable development of the region. And amongst other issues, the need to secure qualified workforce for the businesses is also one of the primary issues or focus points in our activities.
We will definitely come back to this qualified workforce issue. And now I'd like to give the floor to our ambassadors that have questions that will mostly be about education and employment issues. So first question comes from Bojana from Montenegro. Bojana, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So my first question is, do you believe that existing gaps in the formal education system in the Western Balkans make extracurricular or non-formal education programs essential for individuals in order to be prepared and equipped with the necessary skills and competencies that the labor market requires?
So generally, I would say that the non-formal education has stepped in to cover some of the gaps that the formal education systems in all of the Western Balkans countries have had, bearing in mind that the formal education system is a bit more rigid or not that sustainable to changes, or let's say not flexible enough. So I would say that it is not essential to have extracurricular or non-formal education in your CV to get a job or get a better job, but it certainly helps because especially in the last couple of years, non-formal education has focused on some topics or on obtaining some of the skills that are not included, that are not part of the formal education systems within our countries. And that especially relates, for example, to digitalisation, to some new skills that are required because that is what the new circumstances pose as a must, let's say. So there is definitely interplay between the two, but I would not exclude one or the other. Maybe I can come back to what I mentioned in the beginning when I was explaining the organization. One of the primary issues or the challenges that the region has is how to support or expand the possibilities for learning through work. And that in part relates to all the forms of cooperative trainings and the establishment of, in whichever way you call it, a system that bases on the idea of dual education. That would mean integrating what you would need as skills, as preparation for the working places within the educational system. So that would be some kind of a mix between the formal systems of education that we have at the moment and what the non-formal education systems provide at the moment, but there's still plenty to work on in that regard.
Thanks a lot, Tatiana. Just a quick check. Bojana, Alex, and Alexander, have you got the chance to have an apprenticeship or traineeship or any other opportunity to learn from a workplace in your careers? Bojana.
Basically, during my studies, I had opportunity to be an Erasmus Plus student in Rome. And during this program, I also managed to establish some connections that were relevant at the time for my for writing my thesis and also for my career later on. So basically, yes, this is a really key and essential part of everyone's studies to during study establish the connections that can be meaningful and that can improve the skills and sort of help an individual to be better prepared for the labor market later on.
Thanks a lot. Alex, have you got the chance to have an apprenticeship or traineeship?
Well, because of my studies in every faculty in Macedonia, there is a mandatory internships that you should take over the summer. So when you're free, you should take at least 1 month of internships. But the thing is that I took the internship, of course, but a lot of the students don't take the internship, but just find a company that will just sign off that they took the internship, and basically they just spend their free time somewhere else. So basically I did that, but a lot of the young people are in a way going through the holes in the system and just using this kind of companies to say that they have done the internships instead of really going and getting that experience, because I really believe it is very important to get this this real experience, this practical knowledge that it is very useful for the future employment.
So there is an issue of motivating the students to get this experience, actually, more than the employers not offering it. Alexander, have you got the chance to have apprenticeship or traineeship?
Yes, I had the opportunity on both sides. Like I did a traineeship during my studies in Germany, but I also did summer internships in Belgrade, Serbia. And from my personal experience, so in the sphere of politics and diplomacy, there are a lot of students who do want to do traineeships or internships during the summer or during the whole year. But the problem is there's only a few institutions that do offer such traineeships, and those are usually either like institutions from the European Union or the United Nations or foreign embassies. So I think that from my personal experience, there is huge interest from students in Serbia. But the problem is the offer is quite small, and all the good traineeships and internship opportunities are based in the capital, Belgrade.
Thanks a lot for sharing your experiences. Tatiana, do you want to comment on those very different stories actually that we just heard?
Yes, I'm glad to hear that the young ambassadors have had opportunities, because from what I heard, they're really prospective young persons. And they do look young, but what I would reflect on is that a young person should use any opportunity it has, even if it is not in a topic or in an industry that is most tightly connected to what you do at the moment, because every experience you get is simply invaluable.
So tip number one of this episode is get any chance of having an experience to work and get knowledge on the working place. Excellent. We go to the next question that comes from Alex from North Macedonia. Alex.
Yes, I would like to ask, what is your opinion on the massive graduation rates that are happening all around the world, even in our countries, while also taking in consideration that most of them aren't needed for the business sector? So we have a lot of economists and lawyers graduating, and the market doesn't need that. And will the value of the diploma deteriorate over time if this continues further?
It depends, because yes, especially in our countries, in all of the Western Balkans region, we have seen a massive increase of the number of graduates in the last couple of years. And that is, in fact, is not in correspondence in what the labor market needs, on the other hand, because there are not enough capacity to absorb all these graduates. So what we need to do, or that is the relevant stakeholders in the systems should do, is reassess what are the positions that we need, because to be honest, in order to be a professional, not everybody needs to have university diploma, on the one hand. You can very well improve your skills and be good at what you do in specializing directly in some sectors, and it should not strictly be related to university or post-university education. But on the other hand, we should also bear in mind that there is a need to promote specific specialization in different skills. I would call upon the statistics that the region lacks in regard of the number of STEM graduates to some of the comparing European or the leading world markets. So it is not an issue whether it would lose the value, the diploma or any other certificate as such, but I would rather call upon the need to make the most of the education system, so that once a student goes out of that education process, he is really prepared and equipped to bear, let's say, the qualities that the diploma confirms that he has. And in the region, we've had some open issues with that.
Okay, now a question, very provocative one to our ambassadors. Have you considered going to vocational education and training and not the higher education? And if you haven't, why? Bojana.
Well, let's say that I didn't thought that I'm kind of talented for some certain specific vocational education training. And that's why I kind of decided to choose this academic path, like to specialize in law. But I would also like to comment on the fact that in our societies, actually those are the better paid jobs, because finishing university sometimes in our country, and if you want to, for instance, work in the administration, you're getting paid much lower than it is like when you are kind of having your own business and I don't know, repairing cars. And so it is a bit kind of there is this balance, because on the other hand, you are investing a lot in your education, and on the other hand, once you are at the labor market, you're not able to earn that much, like to what you believe you deserve after such a kind of long process of education.
Bojana, is there an issue that vocational education training is a bit less prestigious in your country?
Yeah, probably, because we are the country that developed from the communism, and then during the communism, like just a low percentage of our citizens were able to attend university, and basically we are now fulfilling the wishes of our parents, I would say, not all, but many, and it is a sort of prestigious still, and yeah, that's an important. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Bojana. Alex, have you ever considered going to vocational school instead of higher education institution?
Actually not. I already had my views since I was a child. Maybe my parents told me that that's the right path to go to high school, then university, and then get a diploma. So maybe we're in a way told what to do as children, and maybe our parents and the community made us believe that that's the right way. But I completely agree with Bojana that the reputation of these vocational schools and just having a high school diploma is really seen negative on the Balkans. And I've seen now that the German chambers also are working on changing that. They're introducing this kind of dual trainership in high schools, and they're in a way preparing the children to have more skills when they exit the high school, instead of just having this kind of basic knowledge that maybe is useful to go for a quiz or something, but it's not really useful to work in a specialized company.
Very, very interesting. Thanks a lot. And when you think about vocational education and training, maybe the first thing that you imagine, the first profession is a plumber or someone from agriculture, but also a software engineer could be a vocational education training, and someone who writes the codes. So it's about the angle you turn it. Alexander, what do you think about vocational education training?
So I think you can guess my answer. It will be the same one as the one from Bojana and Alex. In my personal opinion, there is no huge difference between Serbia, Montenegro, or North Macedonia in this regard. And I think that this youth, so this generation of youth is, like Bojana says, we're still like experiencing the chains of the post-communist era. And in the era of the communism, it was really important to gain university education, and our parents and our family still believe this is the right path that we should take. So we don't even take into consideration not going to universities. And like Alex really well put it, for example, I studied in Germany, and in Germany, dual traineeships are a thing that has been done for decades. And I think this could be a really good path for countries of the Western Balkans or the Balkans as such, because they motivate young people who don't want to go to universities to have careers, to have better paid jobs. So I think this is a really good way to go, to motivate others who do not get a place at university level. So this makes a much better society as a whole.
Thanks a lot, Alexander. Tatiana, anything to comment? Because I think there are two strong elements. One is parents' voice, and I think there is anything we can do about it. But there is another element of reputation of vocational education, and maybe there, changing that reputation will help also to change parents' voice. What do you think, Tatiana?
Yes, definitely. I'm not sure about the other countries, but I can speak of my home country, North Macedonia. The relevant authorities in the last couple of years have really paid much attention to spreading the message that it is equally important to get involved in VET. There are many promotional campaigns promoting the possibilities it offers.
The tip number 2 would be parents' voice is important, but consider all potential educational steps, including vocational education, because vocational education can be a very interesting point, especially for the employment opportunities after the study. And now we go with the question from Alexander from Serbia.
Thank you very much. Are soft and hard skills going to become a crucial part of traditional learning and the education system as such, because of their important and decisive role which they are playing during job search? How can these skills be implemented in the traditional education system in today's world?
I would start with a quote. They say that knowledge without practice is useless, but practice without knowledge is dangerous. So if we transpose that saying on the issue of formal education and soft skills, I would say that it would be useless if you are the biggest professional or simply into a matter if you do not possess a certain level of soft skills. But on the other hand, it is not crucial if you do not have appropriate knowledge for the position. So it is a challenge that the educational systems have to bear with. I agree that it is necessary to work on supplementing some of the soft skills and improving the issues of communication, critical thinking, positive attitude, or simply promoting teamwork. Informally, within the educational systems, there have been attempts to include them, but I don't believe that it was formally part of the education system, but more an attempt from individual teachers or professors trying to cope with that part of the education process, along with all other things that are prescribed in the curricula. So yes, the education systems, the formal education systems are definitely ripe for innovations and for including all these issues within the process itself.
Question to ambassadors now. What do you think about soft skills, and do you think you get to learn them in formal education system? Bojana.
For instance, our formal education system, I don't believe that it devotes enough attention to the development of soft skills. But on the other hand, we have many non-formal education system activities that we can enroll, and to kind of this is the opportunity for us to develop our soft skills there.
Thanks a lot, Bojana. Alex, have you learned soft skills while you were studying, or it was something you did with your extracurriculum?
Yes, actually, I'm very grateful to the European Union because it created the Erasmus Plus program, and I used a lot of opportunities that the program gave me. So basically, since I was 15 years old, got involved in this kind of extracurricular activities. And I believe that the soft skills are really, really important. I believe they're something that the future generations will have to learn and will have to know, because with the rapid mechanization and the rise of artificial intelligence and this kind of robots, a lot of these kind of mechanical jobs will in a way disappear, and we will need more kind of this interpersonal skills, as Bojana mentioned, but also this kind of soft skills that we will need to know how, because the machines wouldn't be able to compete with us in that field.
Thanks a lot. So tip number 3, soft skills are getting more and more important, and we have to use any opportunity, including extracurricular activities, to gain those skills and to develop them. Tatiana, anything to comment about?
No, I would agree with your tip, let's say. And I would encourage all youngsters that would be listening to this to keep on working on their skills and on developing their potentials.
Thanks a lot. Alexander, yes.
I would just like to add that Alex spoke about young people getting more and more educated, more and more people who finish tertiary education, more and more people getting diplomas. And in this world where so many people have finished universities, and in this world where those people are not all needed in the business sectors or throughout all the sectors, soft skills are the thing that puts you on the top, that makes you some kind of special, and it really helps you to be like, let's say, different from the others.
Thanks a lot. So we go to the next round of questions, and the next one comes from Bojana from Montenegro. Bojana.
So my next question is how education can be designed in such a way that promotes development of equity and empathy in multicultural environment, and how can the education system promote also reconciliation in such an environment? What would be the challenges or obstacles for implementation of such a policy or practice, and how can they be overcome?
When we talk about reconciliation and promoting some values, especially in multicultural environments, I would say that the crucial issue is getting to know each other. And the best way to do that is by supporting practices of learning about each other's cultures, systems of values, traditions, ideals. So that is the first and the crucial step in order to overcome any possible challenges, any possible ignorances, which in turn, especially in our regions, tend to be even dangerous. So what a good education system should do would be to tend to integrate different groups, getting them together, starting to work together as closely as possible in order to just enable a sharing environment where we can reconcile any possible differences.
So we can say that one important point in education, in the formal education system, is think about empathy and thinking about differences and multicultural environments, right, Bojana?
Yes, basically our education system actually neglects these topics. And so by neglecting them, it's not solving them. It's rather contributing to kind of deepening these divisions that exist along ethnic or national lines.
Thanks a lot. I would say it's another tip. It's a tip number 4, beware of cultural differences and beware of different mindsets. Thanks a lot. Next question will come from Alex from North Macedonia.
I would like to shift the attention to the current situation, because I believe we can all agree that the COVID pandemic crucially changed many parts of our lives, and surely the educational process is one of them. Do you believe that it changed the whole concept of education? Because we can see the digitalization, we can see this kind of adaptation, the urgent adaptation that the educational system went through. And would the children maybe and young people be unaware what a physical classroom really means in 10, 20 years from now?
Thank you. It's a really current issue, and the pandemic and everything that has been going on in the last more than 15, 16 months, it definitely left a mark on the education system, so how we perceive education and how it is implemented on a daily basis. I think the effects of everything that has been happening in the last couple of months will follow in the years to come. But me personally, I wouldn't bet, or I wouldn't propose completely abolishing the concept of education with a physical classroom. But I believe that you will all agree that a big part of our personal experiences, of our characters, has been the education process itself. And it is not simply the time and the curricula that was learned within the education process, but the process, the pedagogical system, the interlinking, the building up socialization, developing emotional intelligence, cooperating and linking with peers, with people on the same level. Nothing of that can be done or can be perceived as such if you don't have the persons interacting and being there in the same room, cooperating directly. Definitely, digitalization brings many positive aspects, but me personally, I'm not that old, but I consider still myself a traditionalist. I wouldn't exclude physical classrooms in the education system.
Definitely, if we have to formulate fifth tip, is that digitalization is important, and maybe the mixed classroom will be the future of education, but we need to be flexible in order to adapt to either physical environment or digital. And I think also Alexander has a question about digitalization, so I will pass the floor to him.
I would like to ask you if the online classes that we're experiencing on all levels, elementary school, high school, university level, are they going to influence the quality of education as such?
Definitely, as I mentioned, digitalization offers possibilities that were almost unimaginable even a couple of years ago. I know that many of the world's leading universities have had online classes long before the pandemic and the necessity for all the other actors in the system to turn to digital education. So definitely we should make the most of the possibilities, the opportunities it offers. For example, when we talk about university education, online tools and digital tools enable you to get access to research papers or books or anything that is current at the moment. So it is a big benefit that was simply unimaginable a few years ago. And all these aspects should be put to practice and you make the most of it in the education system.
Short follow-up question. We talked about how online classes and digitalization can influence quality of the education for the better. But are there maybe also some kind of negative aspects? So can this online classes also negatively influence the education of the youth?
The shortest answer to that would be like any other digital tool. So bottom line, it comes back to the one using it. So even YouTube, you can use it, and I know kids aged 4 or 5 years that are all day on YouTube watching videos about dinosaurs, and I've seen little kids knowing every type of dinosaur there is, and that is the positive way on how you can use it to make extra benefits. But in the bottom line, it is up to the one using it, whether he would use all the benefits it can provide or simply disregard anything that digitalization has to offer.
Yeah, so as usual in life, there are positive and negative sides. So in order to be competitive in the labor market, and in order to make the transition from school to work as easy as possible, we have identified today in this conversation 5 tips. Tip number 1, get any opportunity to learn on a workplace. It can be traineeship, it can be apprenticeship, but look for it and go for it. Tip number 2, not everyone maybe should go to the higher education degree. We know that the parents' voice is important. We know that it's a big thing, but consider alternative pathways, maybe vocational education and training that will give you more opportunities for employment afterwards. Tip number 3, soft skills. They're getting more and more important, and you have to learn them everywhere, in formal education system or using extracurricular activities. Tip number 4, beware of cultural differences and different mindsets. They are important, And for you to be successful in the labor market of the future, you have to be alarmed and beware. Tip number 5, digitalization. It brings a lot of opportunities and we already see them, but be ready for the mixed education and for the mixed workplace, both physical and online. And at this point, I would like to thank our guests for this podcast episode. Bojana Lalatovic, Young European Ambassador from Montenegro. Thank you, Bojana.
Thank you for inviting me. It was a true pleasure to talk about these relevant
Thanks
things.
for coming. Thanks for coming. Alexander Karatosho, Young European Ambassador from North Macedonia. Thanks a lot, Alex.
Thank you, Maria. It was a fruitful discussion.
Alexander Ljubomirovic, Young European Ambassador from Serbia. Thanks a lot, Alexander.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It was a really enlightening podcast.
And thanks a million to Tatiana Steryova-Dushkovska, Secretary General from Western Balkans 6th Chamber Investment Forum. Thanks a lot for your insights, Tatiana.
Thank you, Maria.
Thanks a lot, and there's much more to come. Goodbye.